So I want you to picture something, and I mean really, like put yourself in this exact environment.
Oh, absolutely. You really have to visualize this one.
Yeah, so it is September 12th, 1897. You're standing on the high, thick stone walls of a British Indian outpost called Fort Lockhart.
Which is way up there, right?
Right, you are high up in the mountains of the northwest frontier, and the air is carrying that, that crisp late summer mountain chill.
Oh, yeah, that really biting cold.
Exactly. But despite the vastness of the landscape around you, it is completely silent.
Like a really heavy, tense silence.
Yes, a watchful silence. You are a military officer, and you're standing shoulder to shoulder with your fellow officers, and every single one of you is staring at a rocky ridge roughly 2 miles away across this just vast echoing valley.
Just staring into the distance.
Right, and you are all staring at a single tiny point of light.
And that light is actually moving.
Yeah.
It's pulsing in this very deliberate rhythm,
Yeah.
Long flashes, short flashes.
It's over and over.
Right. It is literally mirrored sunlight, catching the morning rays, breaking them up into a specific sequence, and shooting that beam across the distance directly into your eyes.
Because it's spelling out words in Morse code.
Exactly.
This light is coming from a tiny signaling post on that ridge. The post is called Saragarhi.
Yeah.
And the message that this pulsing light is spelling out, literally letter by letter, is absolutely terrifying.
Oh, it's chilling.
It flashes. We are surrounded.
Just pause and imagine reading that.
Right. It pauses. Then it flashes. Thousands of them.
Unbelievable.
Another pause. Request reinforcement.
I mean, it is the absolute definition of a nightmare scenario, and it's unfolding in total silence from 2 miles away.
Completely silent.
You're receiving this real-time casualty report, this desperate plea for help, but it's stripped of all the visceral noise of combat,
Yeah, no gunfire sounds, no shouting.
Right. It's just reduced to a sterile beam of sunlight.
It's so eerie.
Yeah.
So to unpack this, we were looking at an incredibly rare stack of sources today for this deep dive.
Some really amazing historical documents here.
We really do. We have transcripts of 19th century heliograph logs, the actual messages recorded as they were flashed across that valley.
Which is just incredible to have.
It is. We're also pulling from military dispatches sent from Fort Lockhart, and we're layering in some comprehensive modern historical analysis.
Because we really need that context.
Exactly. So the mission of today's deep dive is to explore one of the most gripping, devastating last stand battles in all of recorded military history.
Yeah, we are talking about 21 soldiers going up against an attacking force numbering in the thousands.
It's just staggering odds.
It really is. And, our sources present a historical event that kind of forces us to look at how we even know about it in the first place.
Right, the medium itself.
Yeah, because this is a battle narrated entirely in real time. It was chronicled through those very flashes of light across a mountain valley by a doomed man who was methodically reporting his own end.
Wow.
And reporting the end of his brothers in arms, knowing full well that no one was coming to save them.
I really want you, listening right now, to just sit with the psychological weight of that for a second.
Like heavy.
Imagine watching your friends, people you serve with every day, fighting for their absolute lives, and they are 2 miles away.
You can literally see them.
You can see the geography, you can see the dust kicking up from the sheer volume of bodies swarming their position, but you are completely physically powerless to intervene.
You're just stuck there.
The terrain and the sheer numbers dictate that you cannot reach them. And all the while, you are receiving their final words, their final tactical situation reports, letter by letter by letter.
You are paralyzed by the geography. Really, forced to just be an audience to a tragedy.
Exactly, an audience.
You know the exact moment a man falls because a mirror catches the sun and tells you his name.
It's like, okay, think about it. Like you're receiving text messages from someone you love who is trapped in a genuinely terrifying, life-threatening situation.
Oh, that's a perfect analogy.
Right. You know that agonizing feeling of staring at the screen, watching those 3 little dots pop up, indicating that they're typing?
And you're just holding your breath.
Every time the dots stop, your heart just completely stops with them. You are waiting for the next word to know they're still alive.
Yeah.
But here, in 1897, it isn't happening on a glowing smartphone screen in your palm.
No, not at all.
It's unfolding slowly, methodically, flash by flash, over a vast, silent mountain valley, while the smoke of black powder begins to, obscure the sky.
The officers at Fort Lockhart were staring at the 19th century equivalent of those typing bubbles, knowing that the moment the light stopped flashing permanently, the battle was over.
The battle is over.
And 21 men were dead.
Yeah.
To really understand the immense weight of that light, we have to look at why this tiny post, Saragarhi, even existed in the first place.
We definitely need to set the board.
We need to set the geopolitical board.
So let's pull back and look at the map.
Okay, let's do it.
We have 21 men stranded on a ridge with a mirror. To understand how they got there, we have to look at the massive political tension of the era.
Which was huge.
Massive. The year is 1897. The location is the northwest frontier of British India, which is modern-day Pakistan.
Right.
This was the raw, bleeding edge of the British Empire. This region was the primary theater of a huge frontier uprising during a period famously known as the Great Game.
And the Great Game was this grand strategic rivalry, this huge conflict between the British Empire and the Russian Empire for supremacy in Central Asia.
Like a massive chess match.
Exactly. The British held the crown jewel of their empire, which was India.
Right.
And they were just consumed by this profound, almost obsessive paranoia that the Russian Empire, which was, expanding rapidly southward, was going to push through Afghanistan and invade India.
So it was literally a geopolitical chessboard.
Yeah.
And the northwest frontier was the ultimate buffer zone.
The front line.
The British military strategy at this time wasn't just about administering territory. It was about projecting power forward, right? To create a physical wall of forts and garrisons between India and potential Russian expansion.
Which brings us to the actual inhabitants of this buffer zone. And it's really crucial, looking at our sources, that we outline this conflict with complete objectivity.
Right, absolutely.
On one side, you have the continually expanding imperial footprint of British India. The empire's pushing its borders outward. They're building permanent forts in regions that had never really been subdued. And they're trying to secure its territories through, military occupation.
The unstoppable, heavily industrialized force of 19th century imperialism.
Exactly. And on the other side, you have the Afridi and Orakzai Pashtun tribesmen.
Right.
These are indigenous communities who have lived in these harsh, unforgiving mountains for centuries.
It's their home.
Right. They are fiercely independent, organized into these decentralized tribal structures, and they're fighting to protect their ancestral homeland,
Yeah.
Their deeply ingrained way of life and their sovereignty from this massive alien imperial encroachment.
I want to make sure we state right here, clearly, that our deep dive views this history impartially.
I think that's very important to note.
We are going to honor the incredible, almost incomprehensible bravery and tactical discipline of the 21 defenders at Saragarhi today, but we are not going to turn the Pashtun tribesmen into faceless villains.
Right, because history is so often painted in these broad, cartoonish strokes of good versus evil.
It really is, but real history is entirely human.
Completely.
It's about conflicting motivations that make complete sense from the perspective of the people actually leading them.
Yeah, the tribesmen were fighting an invading, industrialized empire that was literally building stone fortresses in their backyards.
Which anyone would fight against.
Exactly. And the soldiers in the fort were fulfilling a sacred oath, a profound sense of duty, and fighting for their brothers to their left and right.
Both sides have deeply human, thoroughly understandable motivations.
Recognizing the genuine existential motivations of the Pashtun tribesmen actually makes the story much more honest, I think.
It grounds it.
It grounds the reality of the battle. The Pashtuns were not just some random horde. They were brilliant mountain fighters who understood the terrain far better than the British ever could.
Oh, for sure.
They utilized localized knowledge, guerrilla tactics, and they had this fierce martial tradition.
Right.
When they massed against the British forts in the summer of 1897, it was a highly coordinated effort to sever the imperial grip on their lands.
So let's look at the physical infrastructure of that imperial grip. In these Samana hills, the British strategy relied on a chain of hill forts.
Right.
The two most critical for our story today are Fort Lockhart and Fort Gulistan.
There's actually some fascinating historical layering with these structures.
Oh, yeah, the sources are great on this.
Our sources note that these forts were originally built decades earlier by the legendary Sikh ruler Ranjit Singh during his campaigns in the region.
Wow, so they predate the British presence.
Yeah, and later on, as the British Empire absorbed the Sikh Empire, these forts were taken over, they were expanded, and heavily garrisoned by the British.
Right.
These were substantial, heavily fortified positions made of thick stone and mud. They were the absolute anchors of the military presence in the region, housing hundreds of troops, artillery, and vital supplies.
But, and this is a big but, there was one massive critical problem.
A huge problem.
A fatal flaw in the geography that threatened the entire defensive network. Fort Lockhart and Fort Gulistan were situated roughly a few miles apart, but they were separated by this rugged, highly irregular mountain terrain.
Right.
They could not see each other. They had absolutely no direct line of sight.
And in a hostile environment, especially in the 19th century, isolation is basically death.
It really is.
Today, we kind of take over the rise in communication for granted, right? We have encrypted radios, satellites, GPS tracking, all of that.
Yeah, smartphones, everything.
But in 1897, communication was entirely visual or physical. If you cannot see a neighboring fort and a runner cannot make it through hostile territory, you essentially do not exist to each other.
You're completely cut off.
You cannot coordinate troop movements. You cannot warn each other of an impending siege.
Yeah.
If Fort Gulistan is attacked by 10,000 men, Fort Lockhart, just a few miles away, would have no idea until it was far too late.
So, to solve this massive geographical blind spot, the military engineers looked at the terrain and they found a rocky ridge sitting exactly in the middle.
The perfect spot.
From this ridge, you could see the walls of Fort Lockhart to the east, and you could see Fort Gulistan to the west. So they built Saragarhi.
Saragarhi was positioned perfectly on that ridge, solely to bridge the visual gap.
Solely for that.
It wasn't a sprawling castle. It was a tiny signaling post, essentially just a blockhouse with a small courtyard surrounded by pretty low walls.
Yeah.
Its entire purpose, its only real reason for existing, was to serve as a heliograph relay station.
We really need to dive deep into the heliograph because this is the piece of technology that drives the entire narrative of this battle.
It really is the star of the show, technologically speaking.
It's not just a guy standing on a wall holding a shaving mirror in his hand.
Oh, no.
It is a highly precise, highly vulnerable piece of military equipment.
The heliograph is a brilliant piece of 19th century optical communication.
It really is.
It consists of a main mirror, usually mounted on a very sturdy, heavy wooden tripod to ensure it remains absolutely rigid.
Right, because if it shakes even a millimeter...
Oh, the signal is completely lost miles away. Exactly.
Yeah.
It utilizes a sighting vane, like a targeting mechanism, to perfectly align the mirror with the receiving station miles away.
Yeah.
Once it's aligned, the signaler catches the sun's rays and reflects a concentrated beam of light directly at the target.
And by using a shutter mechanism or by slightly tilting the mirror with a finger key, the signaler can interrupt that continuous beam of light.
Right. They are breaking the beam into short flashes and long flashes, dots and dashes.
Morse code.
Morse code.
Yeah.
So the system works like this. The commander at Fort Lockhart wants to send a message to Fort Gulistan.
Okay.
He dictates the message to a signaler. That signaler uses his heliograph to flash the message to the ridge at Saragarhi.
Right.
The trained signal at Saragarhi reads the incoming flashes, writes down the message, turns his own heavy tripod to face Fort Gulistan, realigns his sighting vane, and flashes the exact same message to them.
Wow.
It's a manual, human-operated optical relay.
Okay, now, looking at the layout, I have a question. If Fort Lockhart and Fort Gulistan were these massive, incredibly important fortresses, and line-of-sight communication was the absolute lifeblood of their survival in this hostile territory, why on earth didn't they just build a bigger fort on the ridge?
It's a great question.
Right. If the ridge is the most important spot to connect the two, why put a flimsy little mud and stone station there?
It really comes down to the brutal, unforgiving logistics of mountain warfare. Building a major fortress requires massive resources. You need hundreds of tons of dressed stone, massive amounts of timber, thousands of man-hours.
Getting all that up a mountain.
Exactly. And more importantly, a fortress needs to support a large garrison, which means it absolutely needs a reliable, massive water source and highly secure supply lines.
Yeah, you can't have 500 guys on a rock with no water.
Exactly. The ridge where Saragarhi sat was steep, it was incredibly rocky, and utterly impractical for a large-scale fortification.
Okay, makes sense.
There was no local water source to sustain hundreds of men. Saragarhi wasn't meant to hold territory. It wasn't meant to project power or withstand a siege. It was purely a communications node.
If we look at it through a modern lens, it is essentially the 19th century equivalent of a cell tower relay.
That's a perfect way to look at it.
You don't build a massive reinforced concrete bunker around a cell tower in the mountains. You just put a chain link fence around it, station a maintenance guy nearby, and hope nobody messes with it.
Right, because the terrain itself makes it too difficult to fortify.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That is exactly what it was. A highly vulnerable piece of infrastructure that connects the heavily fortified, deeply entrenched nodes.
Yeah.
The British relied on the assumption that the forts on either side were intimidating enough to keep the local tribes from massing an attack on the relay itself.
Well, now that we understand the strategic necessity of this cell tower on the ridge, let's look at the human beings who were actually tasked with keeping it online.
Because it wasn't automated.
No, a heliograph isn't a machine you just plug in. It requires highly trained human beings to sit up there on that exposed ridge, calibrating mirrors and bouncing light day in and day out.
Right. And those human beings were the soldiers of the 36th Sikhs.
Specifically, a detachment of 21 men.
Yeah. And to understand who these men were, we have to look at the martial tradition of the Sikh regiment.
It's a really proud tradition.
Extremely. The 36 Sikhs were raised from the agricultural Punjab region. They were known for their immense physical stature, their fierce loyalty, and a deeply ingrained cultural and religious martial tradition.
In the British Indian Army hierarchy, a standard infantryman was called a sepoy, which roughly translates to a private.
Our sources also meticulously mention there was one non-combatant helper in the post.
Yeah, right.
A camp follower named Dad, who assisted with the exhausting daily tasks, cooking, cleaning, managing the meager supplies. This brings the total number of souls trapped in the post to 22.
And the man commanding this small detachment was Havildar Ishar Singh.
Ah, yes.
In the British Indian Army, a Havildar is a non-commissioned officer, roughly equivalent to a sergeant.
Right.
He was the highest-ranking man on that ridge and the absolute authority for the 20 men beneath him.
I really want to spend some time on Havildar Ishar Singh because his character profile in the historical sources is just fascinating, and it explains so much about how this battle unfolded.
It really does.
A British officer who knew him described him in a very specific, memorable way. He called him a handful in peacetime and magnificent in war.
It is an incredible characterization.
Isn't it?
It tells you volumes about a person's psychological makeup in just a few words.
It really does. I mean, you have to think about what peacetime garrison life actually entails for a soldier.
Lots of waiting around.
It is endless monotony. It's polishing brass buttons, perfectly aligning your kit, marching in parade formations, filling out administrative paperwork, and adhering to incredibly strict, rigid hierarchies.
Sounds awful for a certain type of person.
Right. A man who is a handful in peacetime is someone who bristles under that level of micromanagement.
Yeah.
Ishar Singh was a frontier soldier. He wasn't a bureaucrat. He probably argued with superior officers over pointless regulations, bent the rules to take care of his men, and just chafed at the mundane, suffocating rules of ordinary garrison life.
It makes perfect sense. The military machine is built on absolute obedience to routine.
Right.
A man who is fiercely independent, highly aggressive, or stubbornly strong-willed is going to be a massive headache for administrators.
Oh, completely.
But when the abstract concept of war suddenly becomes a violent, chaotic reality, the administrative rules just evaporate.
Yeah, nobody cares about polished boots then.
Exactly. In a crisis, you don't need a man who knows how to polish a boot. You need a man who refuses to yield ground.
Right.
Those exact same traits that make him a nuisance in a quiet barracks, stubbornness, aggression, independent practical thought, are the precise traits that keep people alive when everything goes completely wrong.
Yeah.
Ishar Singh was a warrior who understood the brutal reality of the frontier.
The situation he was about to face absolutely required a warrior because the threat was looming all around them. We are in the late summer of 1897.
Okay.
The heat in the northwest frontier during the day is blistering and the nights are freezing. And out in those valleys, the Pashtun tribesmen are massing.
They're gathering?
The various tribes, which are normally decentralized, have united under a shared religious and territorial banner to expel the British. And their leaders realize something very, very astute about the British defensive network.
Because they understood the system they were fighting against, right?
Yes, they did.
They knew that Fort Lockhart and Fort Gillistan were formidable. A direct frontal assault on either of those massive stone forts would result in catastrophic casualties for the tribesmen.
Just a bloodbath.
Right. The British had heavy artillery and massive stockpiles and ammunition inside those walls.
Yeah.
But the Pashtun commanders also saw the linchpin of the whole network.
Saw the vulnerability.
They saw the tiny mud walls of Saragarhi sitting on that ridge. They realized that if they broke the relay, The two major forts would go completely blind.
They decided to cut the internet cable before attacking the mainframes.
That's exactly it. If you isolate the main forts, they cannot call for reinforcements from the broader region.
Right.
They cannot coordinate a counterattack. The garrisons inside wouldn't even know where the main Pashtun force was located.
They'd just be sitting ducks.
The forts could be starved out, subjected to prolonged sieges, or just picked off one by one. Taking Saragarhi wasn't just about taking a small hill. It was a strategic masterstroke to sever the nervous system of the enemy's entire regional defense.
Think about the psychology of this from the perspective of Havildar Ishar Singh and his 20 men.
It's intense.
Imagine being stationed at this relay post for weeks as the tension builds. You are not there to conquer a city. You are not there to protect a vital river or a civilian population.
Right.
You are there simply to keep a line of communication open. You are sitting on a rocky ridge in a tiny mud and stone enclosure, intellectually and tactically, that you are the prime target in the entire sector.
The psychological burden of that specific duty is just immense.
It has to be.
You are the weakest link physically. Your walls are low. Your ammunition is limited. You have absolutely no artillery.
None.
But you are the most important link strategically. The isolation must have been palpable,
Yeah, surrounded by nothing.
You are surrounded by vast, echoing mountains, constantly scanning the valleys with binoculars, knowing that tens of thousands of armed men are out there gathering.
Just waiting.
And knowing that when they finally move, they are coming for you first. You're basically sitting in a glass house waiting for the first stone to be thrown.
Which brings us to the morning of September 12th. We move from the slow, creeping, agonizing tension of the late summer into the immediate explosive crisis.
The storm breaks.
It is around 9:00 in the morning. The soldiers at Saragarhi look out over the ridge, and the valley, which was totally empty the night before, is suddenly shifting.
Yeah, the tiny post of Saragarhi is suddenly engulfed by an enormous force. The Pashtun tribesmen had moved under the cover of darkness and the complex terrain.
So smart.
When the sun came up, the Sikhs realized they were completely cut off.
Our sources note that the estimates of the attacking force run from 10,000 well upward.
It's a huge number.
Exact numbers from this era, especially concerning decentralized tribal armies, are heavily contested by historians, obviously.
Of course, yeah.
Some estimates put it at 12 or 14,000.
Right.
But even if we take the absolute lowest, most conservative estimates of 8 to 10,000 men, the scale is incomprehensible.
Yeah, it's thousands upon thousands of hardened mountain warriors against 21 riflemen.
The visual of looking out from those low, flimsy walls and seeing the horizon literally shifting with armed men closing in on you from every possible angle, it defies human psychological endurance.
It's a tidal wave preparing to hit a pebble.
But the men of the 36th Sikhs don't freeze. The deep, ingrained military training kicks in. Sepoy Gurmukh Singh, who is the designated signaler, the man responsible for the heliograph, springs into action.
Right to his post.
He gets to his heavy wooden tripod, he aligns the sighting vane, he catches the morning sun, and he flashes the alarm to Colonel Houghton, the commander stationed at Fort Lockhart 2 miles away.
He flashes the terrifying reality. They are surrounded by thousands.
This is where the grim reality of the broader strategic situation is laid completely bare.
It really is. Colonel Houghton receives the flashes of light. He translates the message. He evaluates his own forces inside Fort Lockhart.
Right.
He looks at the 2-mile distance. And he looks at the massive, heavily armed Pashtun army standing between his fort and Saragarhi.
Yeah.
He realizes that if he sends his men out to relieve the ridge, they will be ambushed and slaughtered in the open terrain, and Fort Lockhart will fall next.
He can't do it.
He has to make a cold, calculated command decision.
He has to send the cruelest reply imaginable. He orders his own signaler to flash back to Saragarhi. No relief can reach them in time.
Put yourself in Colonel Houghton's position for a moment.
It's off.
You have to order a man to spell out that message, to look across the valley at 21 men under your direct command, men who trust you, and visually transmit the words, "You are on your own and we cannot save you."
And put yourself in Sepoy Gurmukh Singh's position. He is standing at the mirror. He receives those incoming flashes. He translates the dots and dashes in his head.
Yeah.
And then he has to turn around, look Havildar Ishar Singh and the rest of the men in the eye and say, "We are entirely alone. Help is not coming."
And it is at this precise, devastating moment that the Pashtun tribesmen present them with an option.
This is wild.
Our sources report that the tribal commanders, recognizing the complete futility of the Sikh situation, offered them a choice before the slaughter began.
Yeah.
They shouted up to the walls, offering the defenders safe passage. If the Sikhs simply laid down their arms and surrendered the post, they could walk away with their lives. They would be allowed to return to their homes.
They were given an out, and they refused it.
They did.
I really want to ask you, the listener, what you would do in this exact situation, because we read history and we are so heavily conditioned by glossy military narratives to just nod along and say, well, of course they stayed and fought to the death. They were heroes.
Right. It's almost a cliche at this point.
But strip away the myth for a second and look at the reality. They were given a tangible, verified out. They could have walked away.
Walked right down the mountain?
They could have gone home to their families in the Punjab.
Yes.
Why stay? Your commanding officers, the very people who demand your loyalty and give you your orders, have already explicitly told you via the heliograph that they cannot save you.
Right.
They have effectively written you off. The social contract of the military, you fight for us, we protect you, is broken by sheer geography and overwhelming numbers. So why do you stay and face certain brutal death for a mud communications relay?
This is truly the moral heart of this entire deep dive.
It really is.
It is crucial to understand that this was not just blind obedience to an empire.
No.
They were not mindless automatons following an obsolete protocol because a rulebook told them to. The Sikhs of the 36th made a calculated, profound, moral, and tactical choice.
They made a choice to die.
Yes, because they understood the macro-level stakes of the chessboard. They knew that if they surrendered the post to save their own lives, the tribesmen would immediately sever the line of sight.
The mirrors would be smashed.
The heliograph would be smashed. Fort Lockhart and Fort Gulistan would be completely blinded. Without that communication relay, the Pashtun forces could isolate the forts, ambush supply columns, and potentially overrun the entire sector, leading to the deaths of hundreds, maybe thousands, of their comrades and the innocent civilians sheltering inside those larger forts.
It wasn't about saving themselves. It was about saving the entire network.
They chose to hold the post to the death because as long as Saragarhi fought, the relay lived. As long as they drew breath, fired their rifles, and held those low mud walls, Gurmukh Singh could keep catching the sun.
He could keep flashing.
He could keep flashing tactical updates.
Yeah.
The forts could communicate. They could prepare their artillery. The broader defense could hold. They made the conscious, sober, incredibly brave decision to die over the course of an entire day just so a signal could keep flashing.
The sheer weight of that decision is staggering. So the choice is made. The offer of safe passage is rejected by Havildari Shah Singh.
And now it begins.
And now we experience the horrific consequences of that choice. But what makes this battle so unique in the historical record is that we don't experience it solely from the muddy, bloody trenches.
No, we don't.
We experience it the exact same way the horrified officers at Fort Lockhart experienced it 2 miles away, through flashes of light.
The heliograph frames the entire battle.
Yeah.
From this point forward, every major event, every tactical shift, every casualty over the next 7 hours is a translated flash.
Yeah.
It is the clinical, silent translation of absolute chaos.
Let's walk through those 7 hours. The action begins. The tribal commanders realize the Sikhs are not going to surrender, so they initiate the assault. The first wave of thousands of tribesmen rushes the rocky slope toward the low walls of Saragarhi.
And they are met with a wall of lead.
Just a wall.
The Sikhs are highly disciplined, exceptionally trained marksmen. They don't panic fire. They lay down a withering, coordinated volley of fire, and the initial massive charges are repelled. The tribesmen take heavy losses, trying to breach the open ground. But we need to talk about the physical mechanics of this defense.
The rifles, right.
Yeah, the Sikhs are armed with the Martini Henry rifle.
This isn't a modern, lightweight assault rifle firing smokeless powder.
Far from it. The Martini Henry is a heavy, single-shot, breech-loading, lever-action rifle.
Sounds clunky.
It is, and it fires a massive .450 caliber lead slug. And crucially, it uses black powder.
Ah, right.
Every time a soldier pulls the trigger, the rifle violently kicks back into his shoulder, and a massive cloud of thick, acrid white smoke erupts from the barrel.
If 20 men are firing rapidly, within minutes, the entire courtyard of Saragarhi is choked with blinding white smoke.
You wouldn't be able to see a thing.
It burns the eyes, it chokes the lungs, and it obscures the very targets they're trying to hit, and it obscures the sun for the heliograph.
The sheer volume of incoming fire from the thousands of Pashtun marksmen, many armed with indigenous Giselle muskets and captured British rifles, takes an inevitable toll. The air is thick with bullets whistling over the low mud walls, chipping away the stone, kicking up blinding dust.
And then across the valley, the mirror flashes, the beam cuts through the dissipating smoke and spells out the name of the first man to fall.
First blood.
Sepoy Bhagwan Singh. He is struck and killed in action. The light continues to flash, reporting that other men are gravely wounded.
The tally begins.
The body count has started, and the officers at Fort Lockhart can only stand on their walls, gripping the stone, watching the tally go up in the sky.
It is a terrifying arithmetic being sent across the void. Over the agonizing hours, the heat of the day peaks.
That blistering heat.
Wave after wave crashes against the walls of the post. The tribesmen use the rocky outcroppings to edge closer and closer, laying down continuous sniper fire.
Yeah.
The garrison inside is rapidly shrinking. Dead and wounded men are pulled back from the firing line. The light eventually reports the grim reality. They are now down to half strength.
With the garrison cut in half, the tactical adaptation by Havildar Ishar Singh is desperate and ingenious.
It really is.
The Mirror flashes a report that because they lack the numbers to cover the perimeter, Ishar Singh has ordered the survivors to run frantically between the firing loopholes. Each surviving man is now operating 2 rifles.
They are trying to project a phantom defense.
That's a good way to put it.
A soldier fires his heavy Martini Henry, drops it, grabs a preloaded second rifle from a fallen comrade, fires that, and then scrambles to reload both while moving to another spot on the wall.
It's just frantic.
They're trying to maintain the illusion of a fully manned perimeter to the thousands of men outside, deterring a mass rush.
The physical toll of this is almost unimaginable. The Martini Henry barrel gets blisteringly hot after sustained firing.
Yeah, it can literally burn the skin off your hands.
The recoil bruises the shoulder to the bone. The deafening noise in that enclosed space, the extreme thirst in the midday sun, the choking black powder smoke.
And amidst this absolute physical hell, the light flashes a plea to the sky. A desperate request for ammunition.
They're running out.
They have been firing continuously for hours. The heavy brass cartridges are running out. They are checking the bandoliers of the dead.
Wow.
But of course, as Fort Lockhart receives the message, they know it is futile. There is no supply drop coming. There is no way to push a munitions cart through 10,000 hostile fighters.
While this frantic, exhausting defense is happening on the walls, our sources introduce a terrifying tactical detail.
Oh, this part is incredibly tense.
The Pashtun fighters were brilliant tacticians. They realized they couldn't just rush the walls without taking unacceptable casualties.
Right.
So, unseen by the defenders on the parapets, utilizing a blind angle of the fort's wall, a spot where the Sikhs couldn't shoot down without exposing their entire upper bodies to hundreds of snipers, 2 of the attackers reached the very base of the stone and mud wall.
And they begin digging.
They begin methodically chipping away at the foundation of the fort itself, trying to physically undermine the stones holding the Sikhs up.
I had to compare this to something to really capture the suffocating dread of that specific detail.
Please do.
It is like being trapped in a locked room with a ticking bomb under the floorboards.
Oh, man.
You are up on the wall, your hands are burned, your shoulder is bleeding from the recoil of firing your 2 rifles, but beneath your heavy boots, you can literally feel the vibration in the floor.
You can hear them digging.
You hear the rhythmic, relentless scraping of metal tools on stone. You know, with absolute certainty that the structural integrity of your only protection is actively failing.
Yeah.
But you are pinned down by a wall of incoming sniper fire. You can't lean over the edge to shoot the diggers. You can only watch the sun move across the sky, knowing that at any moment, the ground is going to literally fall out from under you.
The duality of this moment is profound. Think about the intense, visceral reality happening on the ground at Saragarhi.
It's pure chaos.
The smell of copper blood and sulfurous cordite, the desperate shouting of commands in Punjabi, the sheer helpless terror of hearing the wall being chipped away beneath you.
And juxtapose all of that chaotic suffering with the silent, clinical, almost sterile transmission of Morse code reporting it to the sky.
A message flashes across the valley. Wall is being undermined. Stop. Just a calm, rhythmic flash of light.
The officers at Fort Lockhart are reading this pristine, beautiful beam of sunlight cutting across a majestic mountain landscape. But what that light signifies is mud, blood, and the impending end of 21 lives.
It is a profoundly haunting contrast between the medium and the message.
And eventually the ticking bomb goes
The
off.
foundation gives way.
A section of the wall collapses in a massive cloud of dust and rubble.
The macro-level battle, this grand, hours-long siege of thousands against a fortress, suddenly becomes brutally desperately intimate, the perimeter is broken.
The attackers pour through the breach.
Yeah.
The disciplined volley fire is over. It completely devolves into ferocious, chaotic, hand-to-hand combat in the dust and the ruined masonry of the courtyard.
The surviving defenders are completely overwhelmed by the sheer mass of bodies pouring into the small enclosure.
There's just too many of them.
They are fighting with fixed bayonets, trench knives, and the heavy wooden stocks of their empty rifles. And this is where Havildar Ishar Singh steps fully into the legend that the British officer described earlier.
Magnificent in war.
Precisely here. Ishar Singh is already gravely wounded at this point.
Right.
He is bleeding, exhausted, and the perimeter has collapsed. Standard tactical doctrine would dictate that the commander retreats with his remaining survivors into the inner blockhouse, the final fortified fallback position within the post, to buy a few more minutes.
That's what you're trained to do.
But Ishar Singh does not retreat. He steps forward into the breach.
Wow.
He orders his few surviving men to fall back and barricade themselves in the inner guardroom, and he deliberately stays outside in the ruined courtyard to cover their retreat.
He buys them time with his own life.
Yes.
He faces the flood of attackers completely alone, fighting hand-to-hand, drawing the entire focus of the assault so his men can lock the heavy wooden door behind him.
It is the ultimate conscious sacrifice of a military commander.
He falls in the courtyard, overwhelmed by the numbers. But his sacrifice achieves its exact purpose.
It does.
He gives the few remaining men and the signaling apparatus just a little more time. Because even as the courtyard falls and the hand-to-hand slaughter concludes outside, the relay is still incredibly alive.
We now focus entirely on one single man.
Sepoy Gurmukh Singh, the signaler.
He is alone in the highest point of the post, the signaling tower. Below him, the massacre is unfolding.
He can see and hear everything.
He can hear the screams of his brothers dying, the splintering of wood, the roar of the attackers who have completely overrun the compound.
Yeah.
Yet amidst all this, his hands are steady. He is still at his mirror. He is still adjusting the sighting vane. He is still flashing the progress of the battle to Fort Lockhart.
He is narrating the deaths of his friends in real time.
It's hard to fathom.
He is reporting the breach, and then he sends the final message of the day. The most heartbreaking, disciplined message you can possibly imagine in the history of warfare.
What does he say?
He flashes Fort Lockhart to ask for official permission to stop signaling, pack away his mirror, and join the fight.
The signaler at Fort Lockhart receives the flashes, relays it to Colonel Houghton, and Houghton flashes back the final order. Permission granted.
I really want to pause here and unpack the incredible, almost alien level of discipline of this exact moment.
It's hard to wrap your head around.
Gurmukh Singh is a young man, reportedly only 19 or 20 years old.
So young.
He is watching his closest friends be slaughtered mere feet beneath him. The enemy is literally hacking at the heavy wooden door of his signaling tower with axes.
Yeah.
And he still waits for the official sign-off from command to put down his mirror. He asks for permission.
It speaks to a profound, deeply internalized understanding of his specific duty.
Absolutely.
His primary weapon in this war wasn't his Martini Henry rifle. His primary weapon was the heliograph.
That was his job.
To abandon the mirror without explicit permission would be to break the chain of command, to fail in his assigned mission, even if the alternative was picking up a gun to defend his friends or extract vengeance.
Right.
It is a level of military discipline that entirely transcends the basic human instinct for self-preservation or panic.
He was the voice of Saragarhi.
He was the vital link.
And he would not hang up the phone until his commanding officer told him it was okay to do so.
And once that permission was finally granted across the valley, he didn't just panic and throw the mirror aside.
No, he didn't.
The historical accounts suggest he packed away the heliograph carefully into its leather case.
He secured the equipment.
He secured the expensive communication equipment. Then he picked up his rifle, he fixed his long steel bayonet, and he positioned himself at the door of the guardroom.
He held that room alone. He was the last man standing. He fired his remaining ammunition into the attackers trying to breach the door. He fought with such ferocity from that bottleneck that the attackers, taking massive casualties and unable to dislodge him through the narrow entrance, finally resorted to throwing burning brush and oil.
They had to burn him out.
They set the guardroom ablaze. Gurmukh Singh fell in the flames, screaming the Sikh battle cry in the late afternoon. He was the last of the 21.
And that is the exact moment the light finally went dark.
Yeah.
Imagine being an officer standing on the stone wall at Fort Lockhart. For 7 agonizing hours, you have been tethered to your men by this continuous, pulsing beam of light.
He was a lifeline.
It was a lifeline of vital tactical information and profound emotional connection. And then, as the smoke billows up from the distant ridge, the light just stops.
It's gone.
And you are left staring at an empty, burning hill 2 miles away in total, devastating silence.
The permanent absence of the light was the final, tragic message. It meant Saragarhi had fallen, and the 21 men of the 36 Sikhs were gone.
The light has gone out, but we have to ask, what does this all mean strategically? What was the actual result of those 7 hours of hell that were purchased with the lives of 21 men? Let's move into the aftermath of the battle.
The strategic outcome is incredibly clear, and it proves beyond a shadow of a doubt that their sacrifice was not in vain.
It really wasn't.
Because Saragarhi held out for those 7 hours, taking a massive toll on the attacking force and entirely stalling their momentum, the main forts of Lockhart and Gulistan survived.
They held the line.
The Pashtun forces lost the element of surprise. They lost daylight. They expended thousands of rounds of precious ammunition and lost hundreds of fighters trying to take a tiny, insignificant mud relay station.
Wow.
By the time Saragarhi fell, the tribal army was exhausted and disorganized, and the sun was setting.
The delay allowed the broader British military apparatus to react. Fort Lockhart had time to prepare their artillery, distribute ammunition, and brace for the subsequent attacks, which they successfully repelled.
Heavy British reinforcements eventually arrived in the sector, breaking the tribal siege. 2 days later, a relief column fought its way up to the ruined post of Saragarhi to reclaim the ridge.
What a profoundly grim scene that must have been to walk into.
Oh, the military dispatches from that relief column indicate it was a scene of utter apocalyptic devastation.
I can't even imagine.
The mud walls were entirely leveled. The guardroom was a burned-out husk. But amidst the ruins, they found the physical evidence of the incredible stand the Sikhs had made.
They found them.
They found the bodies of the 21 defenders and the camp follower, Dad, amidst a staggering number of enemy dead.
Our sources note that the estimates of the enemy dead found around the fort range widely. We see numbers from around 180 up to 600 or more.
This brings us to a vital part of our deep dive, the historical integrity check.
Right.
We are historians, and we must bring clear-eyed honesty to our sources.
Because we are relying on sources for a battle where literally none of the defenders survived to be interviewed.
Exactly.
There are no memoirs from the men inside the walls.
We must acknowledge what is historically contested. When a story reaches this level of legendary status, the natural human inclination is to intertwine myth and fact.
It always happens.
The exact size of the attacking force is debated. The precise kill counts of 600 enemy dead are often debated by modern historians as potentially inflated for morale purposes.
Sure.
Even the exact, verbatim wording of the famous heliograph messages is likely reconstructed to some degree.
Because Gurmukh Singh didn't leave a written transcript behind in the ashes. The officers at Fort Lockhart received the flashes, but in the chaotic heat of a massive battle, minor details of phrasing might be remembered differently or slightly dramatized in the official reports written days later.
The core events, however, are absolutely undisputed.
The facts remain.
The timeline is verified because the British officers documented the flashes as they came in over those 7 hours, and the physical evidence found 2 days later corroborated the sheer ferocity of the defense. But the cinematic dialogue, the exact numbers, these are subject to historical drift.
We also need to gently retire a very beloved legend about this battle that you will see everywhere.
Yes.
If you read about Saragarhi online or watch a movie about it, you will almost certainly come across the dramatic story that when news of this battle reached London, the entire British Parliament rose in a unified standing ovation to honor the 21 Sikhs.
It is a beautiful, deeply moving image.
It really is.
But as our historical sources point out, it appears to be entirely a myth.
Yeah.
There is absolutely no historical record in Hansard, which is the meticulous, official, verbatim record of British parliamentary debates, of standing ovation ever occurring for Saragarhi.
It's just not there.
It is a legend that grew around the battle over the decades to emphasize the magnitude of their bravery and to secure their legacy in the imperial core.
Now, I have to ask you as an historian, and I ask the listener as well, does knowing that the quotes might be slightly Hollywood derelict, or that the kill counts might be debated by academics, or that Parliament didn't actually clap, does that ruin the story for you?
Not in the slightest. In fact, stripping away the myth does the exact opposite.
I feel the exact same way. I think of history like a massive generational game of telephone.
Yeah, that's a great analogy.
Over 130 years, the exact wording of a quote might shift slightly A number might get rounded up. People add a standing ovation because it feels emotionally true to how we want ultimate heroes to be recognized.
Right.
But the underlying verifiable truth of the sacrifice remains rock solid. 21 men died defending a mud hill against thousands to keep a communication line open, knowing they would not survive. That is a fact.
Relying on the bare, verified facts makes the story profoundly more powerful.
It does.
We don't need a fictional standing ovation in a comfortable room in London to validate what happened in the dirt on that ridge.
Exactly.
The reality needs no exaggeration, and the true honors they received from the military were substantial and completely unprecedented.
Yes, let's talk about that.
All 21 defenders of the 36 Sikhs were posthumously awarded the Indian Order of Merit.
Let's contextualize that, because that was a massive deal in 1897.
It was the highest gallantry decoration available to an Indian soldier in the British Empire at that time. It was the absolute equivalent of the Victoria Cross.
Wow.
To have an entire unit awarded this medal posthumously was unheard of. Furthermore, the British government built memorial Gurdwara Sikh places of worship in their honor, using public funds.
That's significant.
These memorials stand today in Amritsar and Firozpur. And every year, on September 12th, the modern Sikh Regiment formally commemorates Saragarhi Day, honoring their sacrifice. Their legacy is absolutely secured in reality, not just in myth.
We are coming to the end of our deep dive into these incredible sources, and I want to synthesize the ultimate takeaway here. We study a lot of history on this show. We analyze battles, treaties, and empires, and almost all of the history that reaches us secondhand.
It reaches us through the chroniclers who survived the event, through generals writing self-serving memoirs years later from comfortable estates, or through politicians spinning a narrative to justify a war.
But the story of Saragarhi is fundamentally different. It reaches us almost entirely because 21 men chose to become a message.
Yeah.
They authored their own history in real time under unimaginable duress. And the dying man transmitting that message refused to stop until the absolute bitter end.
The underlying message of Saragarhi wasn't just about troop movements or ammunition requests. Fundamentally, the message was, the line holds.
The line holds.
They were the line, and they held it until they were physically extinguished.
I want you, the listener, to think about the incredible power of communication and memory. The light from that heliograph stopped flashing in 1897, but the message didn't stop.
It's still going.
Every time someone reads about Saragarhi, every time a historian digs into the military archives, every time we sit here and unpack it on a deep dive, that light is effectively still traveling. The signal got through the smoke.
That is a highly resonant way to look at historical transmission. And if we connect the core truth of this event to our modern lives, it leaves us with a final thought to ponder.
Yeah, let's hear it.
Today, we don't use heavy wooden tripods and mirrors to communicate. We leave massive, constant digital footprints. We send texts. We post updates. We leave streams of data behind us constantly.
Right.
If a crisis happened tomorrow, and you suddenly found that you had only a few moments left to communicate your reality to the outside world, what would your final flash of light across the valley be?
Wow.
What message, what truth, or what final word would you deem important enough to spend your last moments transmitting to the people you love?
That is a thought that stays with you. What is the one thing you need the world to know before the light goes dark? Thank you so much for joining us and unpacking this incredible source material today.
It's been an honor to discuss it.
We started by asking you to imagine staring at a tiny flashing light on a distant mountain ridge, waiting for the next word. The next time you are looking at your screen waiting for someone to reply, maybe take a second to think about the incredible weight a simple message can carry across the void. We will see you on the next deep dive.